Commander RYX observed the pale blue planet through the narrow aperture of the concealment barrier, noting the swirl of white clouds and vast seas that reflected the faint starlight from beyond. For days, RYX's team of observers had lingered in the shadows of Earth, sending a false satellite into low orbit to create a distraction. It had worked. Earth's governments were abuzz with speculation about the strange craft. The real work, however, was taking place on the ground, where RYX and 3 fellow observers had established a hidden vantage point inside what Earthlings call the International Diplomatic Complex. From here, they hoped to study humanity before recommending next steps to the Galactic Council. The Council had made one directive clear: identify the most dangerous humans. More precisely, find out who or what among these bipeds could pose the greatest threat to a peaceful integration, should Earth be deemed worthy of contact. History taught that appearances were deceptive. The Flaxoids, though they looked like kindly orbs, could melt through hull plating with their acidic secretions. The bestial Zenturi, who appeared monstrous, were pacifist philosophers. Humans, by all accounts, fell somewhere in between, contradictory, unpredictable, and always on the edge of conflict or innovation. Analyst Zen was reviewing the day's footage from the enormous assembly hall below, where hundreds of delegates from various nations gathered to discuss what they believed to be a single, unexplained satellite. Zen's wiry limbs trembled with tension. "Commander," they said quietly, "the individuals we expected to dominate this summit are behaving as predicted. Loud voices, gestures of power, veiled threats of militaristic escalation. Yet I keep noticing details that do not match the official protocols. There are people in this crowd whose presence does not align with their supposed roles." RYX turned away from the vantage slit. "You mean the staffers, the technical teams, the caterers? The humans that appear too inconsequential to matter?" Commander RYX had studied Earth transmissions for weeks and believed that the obvious power brokers, political leaders, generals, security chiefs, would be the prime concerns. So far, the likes of Secretary General Julia Townsend and Ambassador Raimundo Vargas had been easy to track. Townsend's speeches about cooperative research soared over the crowd. Vargas's calls for heightened orbital weapons bristled with hostility. It was the classic dichotomy, the diplomat versus the war hawk. But Zen shook their narrow head. Yes, the less visible ones. There's a scientist called Evangeline Reed who appears on no major roster. She's listed as a technical advisor, but has roamed freely through restricted areas. If she truly is a minor functionary, how did she secure such access? Also, she carries a handheld device that seems to read energy fluctuations. I suspect she's picking up the faint leakage from our cloaking field. Across the cramped observation post, where half-transparent screens glowed with streams of alien data, Technician Mara let out a soft hiss. "I ran a scan half an hour ago. I detected an unaccounted signal overlapping with our cloaking frequency. I recalibrated our field, but it persisted." Mara's multiple eyes blinked in rapid succession. If that device belongs to her, it might mean these humans have discovered a way to detect us. Commander RYX's spine quivered in mild alarm. That would be very fast adaptation on their part. We arrived only a short time ago, and our stealth technology is generations ahead of any Earth technology on record. RYX paused, then turned to Scout Ver, the last member of their team. "Ver, you're the best at ground reconnaissance. Keep watch on this DR. Reed, it might be nothing, but we cannot afford to overlook any anomaly." Ver, shorter than the rest, specialized in infiltration and had studied Earth's body language, gait, and social cues the most. They were confident about walking among humans undetected for short spans. Ver nodded. "I'll do a closer look. If she is an outlier, I'll confirm it." RYX stepped back to the vantage slit. In the large assembly hall below, a raised platform accommodated the main speakers. Secretary General Townsend was once again exhorting the crowd to remain calm, to form a multinational task force of scientists to investigate this visitor in orbit. Ambassador Vargas retorted that Earth could not afford naive optimism. While the humans in the front row busied themselves with heated debates, a line of staffers hovered along the periphery of the room. Some carried refreshments, others passed out printed documents or adjusted the audiovisual feeds. RYX noticed a slender figure in a gray blouse, standing quietly in a corner by an array of monitors. Her hair was neatly pulled back, and she had an ID badge that read simply E. Read. Even at this distance, with enhanced vision, it was easy to miss her. She hardly spoke to anyone. Her eyes, however, scanned the room with calm calculation. She tapped something on her handheld device, its small screen glowing faintly. This is exactly the type of human the council warned us about, RYX muttered, half to Zin. The one who doesn't bark or posture. The one who observes. Down in the assembly, Townsend ended her statement with a hopeful flourish. The crowd applauded politely. Vargas leapt onto the stage, microphone in hand, condemning that idea as hopelessly trusting. Meanwhile, in a discreet corner, Dr. Reed moved from the row of monitors to a side door. She spoke briefly to a security officer, who nodded and let her pass. As Ver rose to follow, Zin quickly provided a faint infiltration override for the door systems if needed. Ver set out, and Commander RYX's mind buzzed with conflicting thoughts. They had come to Earth to find potential threats among these unpredictable humans. They had expected generals, ambassadors, and secret police. Instead, they were trailing an apparently minor figure with a mysterious device. Moments later, Ver's voice crackled through the neural comm link that connected them. I've slipped into a corridor behind the main hall. Reed is up ahead, scanning something on the walls. She's not talking to anyone. Wait, she's turning down a restricted hallway. I'll try to keep my distance. RYX, Zin, and Mara watched from the display feed that Ver's hidden body cam transmitted. The corridor was dim, lined with unmarked doors. Dr. Reed paused at a metal panel, inputted a quick series of numbers on a security keypad, and slipped inside. As Ver quietly approached, the door sealed behind Reed, requiring a passcode. Ver tried the handle, found it locked, and pressed a small override device to the panel. A faint whir sounded, and the door slid open. Inside was a large, half-lit chamber that appeared to be a technical control room. Screens displayed security camera feeds from all over the diplomatic complex. Not just the main hall, but also meeting rooms, mechanical areas, and side entrances. Reed was standing at the far end, typing rapidly on a console. On a secondary monitor, lines of alien text scrolled, text that resembled the Council's standardized codex. Ver carefully moved behind a pillar, trying to remain out of view, but it was too late. Without turning around, Reed said quietly, I know you're there. Your stealth field is impressive, but it has a telltale flicker in the ultraviolet spectrum. I've been tracking it since you arrived. Ver froze, uncertain if Reed was speaking in Earth's English language or the Council's standard. The words, however, came through in perfect standard. Ver's heart pounded. None of the official data suggested that a human on Earth would speak standard. How are you? They began. Reed lifted a hand to silence Ver, still not turning around. Please, don't be alarmed. I have no intention of raising an alarm on your presence. She tapped a final key on the console, and the scrolling alien text vanished. I assume you came to observe and assess us, correct? In the hidden vantage post, Commander RYX, Zin, and Mara all stared at each other in disbelief. There are stories of humans who had glimpsed Council transmissions or who suspected advanced life forms might exist, but full bilingual fluency? That was unheard of. RYX spoke softly into the comlink. Ver, don't reveal yourself. Try to ascertain what she knows. Ver swallowed the surge of panic. You speak our language. That suggests you've accessed data well beyond Earth's standard tech level. Finally, Dr. Reed turned. She was calm, a small, almost apologetic smile on her face. I prefer calling it adaptation. Your orbiting decoy gave off certain signature patterns. My team has encountered partial fragments of such technology before, enough to form a rudimentary dictionary of your language. We improved upon it once we identified repeated phrases. Ver gave a slight nod, though it was wasted behind the stealth suit. You are alone in this. Why not inform your leaders? Why not involve everyone? Reed arched an eyebrow. What leaders? Ambassador Vargas? The generals who posture about blowing things out of orbit? Secretary General Townsend, who struggles to keep the peace between nations. No, they aren't prepared for direct knowledge of your advanced capabilities. Some in the highest circles know more than they let on, but I suspect only a few of us truly grasp the scale of what's happening. And even fewer can respond rationally rather than react with panic or aggression. RYX's voice flickered over Vere's earpiece. We can't let her know everything about us. This is a direct violation of a non-contact protocol. But if she's already aware, we can't just vanish. We need to proceed cautiously. Vere remained close to the pillar. My superiors won't be pleased to learn that we've been discovered so easily. Reed nodded as though empathizing. That's understandable. But you did leave a big clue. She typed on a console, and an image of the decoy satellite appeared. Next to it was a faint energy field signature. You see, once we realized the satellite was more of a lure than an actual threat, we started scanning for ground-based anomalies. That led me to the drifting electromagnetic pulses your cloaking device radiates. From there, it was a matter of coding an interface. Earth computing might seem primitive to you, but it's versatile enough when used creatively. In the Vantage Room, Mara could barely hide a note of admiration. This is beyond the scope we anticipated. Zin's posture stiffened. We need to regroup, Commander. RYX was about to order Vere back when Reed continued. Please, I would like to speak with all of you. Not just the scout you sent. I can see from these readouts that there are 4 distinct life signatures matching the anomaly patterns. We can keep dancing around each other, or we can discuss this calmly. Vere hesitated. The stealth field flickered slightly. I can't make that decision alone. Reed offered a small wave of her device. I'll be in the secondary level maintenance corridor in 10 minutes. It's quieter, fewer cameras. Bring your team if you wish. Or vanish into the night if you prefer. But something tells me you came here to gather real insight about who we are, which you won't achieve if you remain hidden. With that, she turned away, meticulously shutting down the system, leaving Vere uncertain whether to follow. Moments later, Vere slipped out to rejoin the others. Back in a makeshift hidden vantage room, Commander RYX paced restlessly. This was exactly what the Council feared: detection. If even one human can detect us, that suggests unpredictability or advanced hidden science. Should we abort now and exit the planet? Zin tapped a slender finger on the console. If we abort, we leave with incomplete data. The entire purpose was to gauge their readiness and threat level. We already see they're more advanced than official channel suggested. That's precisely why we should meet her. She might confirm or deny what Earth is truly capable of. Mara looked from one face to another. Agreed. Our stealth is compromised. The best course might be to see how far their knowledge goes. Then we can decide if we must retreat. Vere nodded. Reed requested a meeting in the lower maintenance corridor. It's less surveilled. She's evidently controlling some of the camera systems. RYX exhaled a low hiss, considering the risk. Very well. We approach with caution. If she truly wishes no harm, perhaps we can glean enough to finalize our assessment. Thus, they left the vantage room. Clad in partial stealth suits, the 4 of them navigated the labyrinth of utility corridors beneath the diplomatic complex. There were a few close calls, security staff patrolled in random intervals, but the suits, though compromised, still conferred enough camouflage for the unsuspecting guards. Eventually, the team reached the place Reed had indicated, a narrow corridor lit by flickering fluorescent panels. Machinery hummed in the walls, pumping coolant or electricity to the upper floors. Nobody else was around. Dr. Evangeline Reed stood near a heavy metal door labeled Authorized Personnel Only. She had changed from the neat gray blouse into darker, more functional clothing, as if prepared for a covert meeting. A small device lay on a crate beside her. She lifted her gaze to them, though to the naked eye, she should have seen only empty air. Commander RYX deactivated the stealth field, albeit partially, revealing 4 tall, bipedal figures with elongated limbs, pale exoskeletal plates, and eyes that glimmered with multifaceted surfaces. RYX stepped forward, trying to project calm authority. I am Commander RYX of the Observational Corps, a branch of the Galactic Council. This is Analyst Zin, Scout Ver, and Technician Mara. Reed nodded politely. You can call me DR, Reed, or Evangeline if you prefer. I'm grateful you agreed to speak in person. I realize this is irregular. Ver's stance was guarded. Irregular is an understatement. Reed glanced around, ensuring no one else was within earshot. I spent many years collecting breadcrumbs, bits of data from crashed craft, stray signals, contradictory reports. My colleagues, and I knew we weren't alone. But seeing you in person confirms it beyond any doubt. Mara studied the human. Her face was composed, her tone calm. She had no visible weapons, just that device and what looked like a small satchel over one shoulder. You aren't surprised? Mara observed. No, Reed replied. Slightly nervous, but not surprised. We suspected an encounter would happen sooner or later, especially after your decoy showed up. We had to make sure it wasn't a harbinger of something more dangerous. But you're here, evaluating us. I suspect you want to know how dangerous humanity is or can be. Commander RYX stiffened. That is indeed our mandate. Reed offered a faint, almost sad smile. We're dangerous in obvious ways. Our wars, our weapons, our capacity for violence. But I suspect your council has already recognized that any species that reach this technological level must have a history of conflict. The real danger lies in our ability to adapt, to learn from whatever we find. We're flawed in countless ways, but we're relentlessly curious. Zin's long arms folded across their torso. You speak as if you can represent your entire species. Reed shook her head. Hardly. Earth is fractured. Hundreds of nations, conflicting ideologies, constant political tension. That's the official face you see. People like Ambassador Vargas who posture about war, or Secretary General Townsend who begs for unity. But behind those faces, there are smaller teams, distributed networks, pockets of collaboration. Some of us have been preparing for potential contact for a long time. Why keep it secret? Ver demanded. If so many of you know or suspect, wouldn't you unify, reveal your findings, push for official acceptance? Reed lifted the device from the crate, turning it in her hands. Because historically, whenever a new powerful technology or discovery appears, certain factions exploit it for military or political gain. If we announced tomorrow that we had proof of advanced extraterrestrial visitors, the geopolitical climate might shift drastically. Some would call for immediate aggression, others for total secrecy, and still others would panic. The truth is, we're not entirely ready. My group's purpose is to monitor, gather knowledge, and hope that one day we can carefully guide a peaceful introduction. RYX caught the subtle emphasis. Hope, not certainty. So you're telling us there are others like you, quietly analyzing any sign of alien contact? Yes, Reed said. Some in governments, some in private sectors, some among academia. We don't hold official power like Vargas or Townsend, but we have knowledge. And knowledge is a different sort of power. Mara's eyes flickered with interest. You said you had fragments from crashed craft. That would mean you've had evidence of advanced life for decades, maybe longer. Reed nodded. We suspect multiple clandestine incidents. Some are rumored in conspiracy circles, but others are verified with recovered materials. My own lab is partly funded by agencies that want defensive strategies if we ever confront a hostile extraterrestrial force. The assumption among the hidden committees is that we'd be severely outmatched, so we rely on stealth and cunning. But ironically, that seems to be exactly what your team is doing here. Zin considered everything. You imply your entire species might be better prepared for contact than your public statements show. That's remarkable, but also deeply concerning. Reed took a step back, leaning against the wall. Concerning for you, because you can't trust that we're as ignorant or uncoordinated as we pretend to be. Concerning for me, because if I fail to convince you that we can be reasoned with, your council might brand us a threat and take preemptive measures. Commander RYX weighed the possibilities. The council's first contact records were clear. If a species was deemed overly volatile, the council might impose containment or even sabotage that civilization's progress to avoid a future threat. Humanity's history of war could easily tip the scale that way. But was that the full story? Our YX realized, with a pang, that they had not anticipated this level of nuanced infiltration, this hidden dimension of Earth's readiness. Ver stepped forward, arms at their sides to appear less threatening. What would you have us do, DR? Read? Our official instructions are to watch from afar, remain undisclosed, then file a report that influences how and when the Council reveals itself. We never intended to reveal ourselves to a single human, let alone hold a clandestine meeting. I know, Reed said softly, but we both find ourselves in unforeseen circumstances. You can vanish, return to your vantage point, and pretend this conversation never happened. But from what I've seen, that would give you a dangerously incomplete understanding of who we are. The people you watched in the big hall, Townsend, Vargas, only represent part of humanity's story. If you base your conclusions solely on their public theatrics, you might declare us too unstable. And if you do that, your council might come to us with restrictions or an ultimatum, which in turn would provoke certain Earth factions to lash out. It could spiral into violence that neither side wants. Our YX thought of the council's directive. The deadliest threats are often hidden. If Reed was telling the truth, many hidden watchers might be as savvy as she was, or even more so, scattered across the planet. A confrontation might be disastrous. So, your solution? Our YX asked. I want to show you that there's another layer to our species. Groups that have no desire for war with unknown, starfaring civilizations. People who prefer silent study until we can initiate contact responsibly. She stepped away from the wall. Let me take you somewhere more secure. I can share evidence of what we've learned about your council. Yes, I know about them, and other species that have passed by Earth. Then you could decide how you want to frame your report. A surge of tension swept through the alien team. The notion that a single Earth scientist had knowledge of other species was shocking enough, but the mention of passed by Earth implied repeated unauthorized visits. This is borderline impossible, Mara murmured. The council meticulously monitors each sector. Reed gave a wry grin. Perhaps not as meticulously as you think, or maybe some visits were purely accidental. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I have enough anomalies to show you. Time is short, though. Security patrols will be here soon. Our YX exchanged looks with Zin, Ver, and Mara. The risk loomed. Yet they had come this far. If they retreated now, they might produce a flawed or incomplete assessment. We'll go with you, our YX decided, but we retain the option to leave at any moment. Agreed, Reed said. She pushed open the heavy metal door behind her, revealing a spiral staircase that led downward. A thrumming set of pipes ran parallel, carrying water or coolant. The sound was oddly soothing, a mechanical heartbeat of the building. They descended multiple levels beneath the diplomatic complex. At times, Reed paused to enter passcodes or pass biometric scans. Despite the labyrinthine environment, she navigated with ease. Finally, they arrived at a large, open space reminiscent of a storage bay. However, the cargo crates were replaced by arrays of monitors, lab benches, and sealed containers. This used to be a maintenance substation, Reed explained, her voice echoing. Now it's a private lab. We keep it off the official logs. My colleagues and I established it to collate our data on extraterrestrial signals. Tonight's conference was a perfect vantage to watch how certain influential figures responded to that satellite you placed in orbit. Ver's eyes darted around, scanning the technology. Some of it looked decidedly more advanced than Earth's typical level. A few screens displayed references to advanced theoretical physics, spectral signatures well beyond nuclear knowledge. Did you build this lab alone? Reed shook her head. I'm just one node in a network. We help each other gather pieces of the puzzle. This is where we bring those pieces together, analyze them, share insights with a handful of trusted allies. Let me show you something. She walked to a sealed container and placed her palm on a scanner. The lid hissed open, revealing a small metallic shard about the size of a human hand. Mara's posture stiffened. That's Carabaxian hull plating. We had no record of that ever making it to Earth. We found it in Antarctica, embedded in ice, Reed said, carefully lifting the shard. Carbon dating of the surrounding ice suggests it's been there for several decades. The pilot, if there was one, never surfaced alive, or if they did, no official record remains. But we have data logs that mention a crash, an unconfirmed survivor, and an abrupt cover-up by multiple governments. Then step closer. Our archives note a Carabaxian scout vessel lost in this sector, never recovered. The Council concluded it was destroyed. This is a major revelation. Reed sighed. We also have rumors of a partial engine core recover from that site, though I've only seen secondhand evidence. My point is, Earth's knowledge of alien activity is more extensive than most humans realize. I'd guess fewer than 1 in 1,000 knows it, but some of us piece together the bits and hide them in plain sight. Commander RYX tried to remain calm, though adrenaline soared through his alien physiology. You realize the Council would find this deeply concerning. Unmonitored contact or crash vessels are a violation of multiple treaties. Earth was not supposed to have any evidence, let alone advanced technology in its possession. Reed placed the shard back into the container and sealed it, which is why we proceed quietly. There are those among us who would love to militarize all of this, but enough of us believe in a more cautious approach, focusing on understanding rather than confrontation. Mara studied the banks of monitors. One showed real-time data from the assembly hall upstairs, capturing Townsend and Vargas at the podium. Another displayed dozens of archived footage clips, some of which appear to show unusual lights in Earth skies or alleged craft remains. So, will you watch everything from here? Yes, and from sister labs around the world, each small enough to avoid detection, but collectively forming a global watch. We anticipated a day like this when the Watchers, people like you, would appear on the ground. We hoped we could initiate a dialogue, though I didn't expect it to be in the middle of an international summit. RYX glanced at his team, each of whom seemed transfixed by the evidence. Part of their mission was to discover how quickly humans might detect and respond to advanced technology. The answer, apparently, was remarkably fast. How do we know this isn't a trap? That you aren't luring us into a false sense of security while an attack force mobilizes? Reed offered a rueful laugh. If I wanted an attack, I could have alerted the squads of heavily armed security upstairs. But all that would achieve is chaos, possibly bloodshed, and nothing beneficial for either side. We're unprepared for a direct assault on your technology anyway. It would be suicide. Vare nodded slowly, acknowledging the logic. So, you want to show us that your species has potential allies who prefer quiet intelligence gathering over open hostility. In short, that you're not uniform in your aggression. Exactly, Reed said softly. Humans are never uniform in anything. We fight each other as often as we cooperate. But if your council sees only our worst side, you might condemn us prematurely, and that condemnation could become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Zin frowned. Self-fulfilling prophecy, meaning if we label you hostile, the Council might impose crippling conditions, inciting some Earth powers to respond with aggression. Precisely, Reed replied. I'm trying to prevent that. Show us a path to a better introduction. Maybe I can rally enough rational minds among human leadership to reciprocate. It won't be easy, but it's better than stumbling in a conflict through misunderstanding. A quiet beep emitted from one of the monitors, drawing Reed's attention. She stepped over and studied it. The official summit upstairs is called an unscheduled recess. Vargas is storming out, and Townsend looks distressed. Something about the satellite. Possibly new data from your decoy. Mara squared her shoulders. We did design it to provoke analysis, but not to incite alarm. Reed glanced back at them. Then your plan succeeded too well. My guess is that some government labs are feeding new intel to Vargas, fueling his paranoia. He'll push for immediate militarization of our near orbit. You see how precarious this is. Commander RYX felt the weight of responsibility crush upon him. They had intended to remain purely observers, but Dr. Reed's revelations complicated everything. Then we may need to incorporate what you've told us into our final assessment. If humans are indeed on the brink of mobilizing weapons around your planet, the Council's next steps become even more urgent. Reed's breath caught slightly. In that case, I should show you the rest of the data. If you have a means to contact your superiors in real time, do so. Let them know we might be open to behind-the-scenes negotiations, provided they approach discreetly. Zinn gestured for Reed to proceed. Reed led them to another station where lines of code and waveforms filled the screens. We've matched these signals to known frequencies that different extraterrestrial craft have used over the decades. Some are faint echoes, some are strong pulses. This chart tracks how often they appear. Notice the spike in recent weeks, coinciding with the moment your decoy arrived. It's as if other parties are also interested in Earth right now. Ver let out a low hiss. Multiple alien species converging? That could be chaos for your planet. The Council tries to regulate and schedule first contact for precisely this reason. Reed exhaled slowly. Now you understand my urgency. If Earth becomes a cosmic free-for-all for every curious or opportunistic traveler, we'll face potential infiltration or exploitation. Many in our high offices are oblivious to that threat. Only a few of us perceive how delicate this moment is. A tension-laden silence hung over the lab. Commander RYX, struggling to digest all this, rested a clawed hand on the nearest console. Give me a moment to consult with my team privately. Reed nodded, stepping away to give them space. The four aliens huddled, communicating through subtle gestures and quiet voices in their own language. Mara was in awe of the data. Zinn was half skeptical, half fascinated. Ver insisted that meeting Reed was the break they needed to glean deeper truths. RYX was torn. The protocol mandated minimal contact, yet this might be the only path to an accurate recommendation for the Council. Finally, RYX turned back. We'll remain a bit longer. Show us everything you deem necessary for us to understand Earth complexities. In return, we'll provide a more balanced view of what to expect from the Council. But I warn you, if we sense duplicity, we will leave at once. Understood, Reed said, a flicker of relief crossing her features. I have no interest in deceiving you. The real challenge is whether we can shift the public narrative toward cooperation before the hawkish voices drown us out. For the next hour, they pored over files and footage. Reed revealed details of small anomalies in Earth's history, strange apparitions in remote regions, rumored interactions with unknown beings, suspicious quarantines. Much was circumstantial, but too consistent to ignore. Meanwhile, the alien team quietly shared some context. The Council's standard procedure for evaluating new worlds, the various categories of contact, from friendly integration to enforced isolation. As they talked, a muted alarm pulsed on one of Reed's screens. She hurried to silence it, reading the data feed. Vargas has called for a closed-door emergency meeting with several generals. They're discussing an orbital defense network with immediate effect. He'll claim it's for security, but I've seen him push for unilateral control. Townsend is trying to hold him off. However, if he garners enough support, Earth could begin deploying heavy weaponry in orbit by next month. Zinn shook their head in dismay. That might provoke the Council. If Earth arms its orbit aggressively, the Council could interpret that as open hostility once they reveal themselves. Reed's expression darkened. That's exactly what we need to avoid. But you see the problem. We can't simply tell Vargas, don't do this because advanced aliens are already here watching. He might escalate further, wanting to seize any advantage. Mara's many eyes gleamed with pity. Your species is at war with itself, even on the threshold of cosmic discovery. Reed sighed. War might be too strong a word, but we are deeply fractured. The appearance of that decoy satellite has only heightened fears. Commander RYX cleared his throat. In that sense, your actions, monitoring us so closely, mirror ours. You try to glean the truth quietly. We do the same. Are you certain you speak for more than a handful of scientists? Reed nodded. There are enough like me to make a difference. Some have influence in certain governmental circles, others in the scientific community or private tech sectors. You saw me upstairs blending in as a mere technical advisor. But I was collecting real-time intelligence, funneling it back here. She gave a wry half-smile. We are many in number, hidden behind the noise of our louder countrymen. Suddenly, Ver's comlink buzzed. A voice from orbit relayed a single line. The Council's official delegation has changed course. Arrival in 48 hours. Ver repeated the message out loud. Everyone froze. 48 hours? Reed asked, her face paling. Why so soon? RYX lowered his gaze. They must suspect the presence of other unregulated visitors. Or they're anxious about how quickly events here are escalating. Typically, we had planned for a slower approach, giving more time to gauge your civilization's stability. Reed's hands tensed around the device in her grasp. That means we have less than 2 days before something irrevocable happens. Either the Council arrives openly, maybe with a show of force if they think we're too dangerous, or attempts a more covert insertion. If Vargas and others sense that the entire planet could erupt in suspicion and scramble for control, then study the data in front of them. We need to finalize our evaluations soon. Commander, under these circumstances, we might need to propose direct negotiation, with Reed as a liaison. RYX turned to her. Dr. Reed, are you in a position to gather some of your like-minded allies, the ones who prefer peaceful contact? We can't rely solely on your word. The Council will want multiple human voices. Reed slowly nodded. Yes, I believe I can. Many are scattered, but we have secure communication channels. If you can give me the means to confirm you're genuine, some sign of good faith, then I can do the same with them. Ver frowned. Our protocol forbids sharing advanced technology, but maybe we can provide some sanitized glimpses of Council documents, enough to prove our legitimacy without jeopardizing security. RYX considered that. All right, Mara, can you compile a small data packet on the Council's membership, its code of interstellar conduct, and the primary contact protocols? Nothing sensitive, just enough for DR. Read to show her people that we're not a hoax or a threat. Yes, Commander, Mara replied, stepping toward a console they carried for encryption tasks. Within minutes, they prepared a specialized data holocube set to self-erase if tampered with incorrectly. The encryption was basic but enough to deter casual prying. Reed accepted the holocube with reverence. This might be the key to persuading certain influential individuals that peaceful dialogue is not just a pipe dream. But time is short. I'll need to step away, reach out to them. Can I trust that you won't vanish while I'm gone? RYX gave a curt nod. We'll remain in this facility. But if you aren't back in a few hours, we can't promise to wait forever. We must also factor in the Council's new timetable. Reed walked to a large steel door on the far side of the lab. I'm heading to a more secure channel. It's just down this corridor. Feel free to explore the lab if you'd like. Don't worry about the security cameras in here. They're under my control. Once Reed disappeared, the aliens exhaled collectively. Ver walked around the lab, gazing at the peculiar mixture of Earth technology, some obviously modern and mass-produced, others more homemade or experimental. I never imagined a single planet could be so contradictory. Loud ambassadors upstairs, secret watchers like Reed below. Zin was running data comparisons. Her story checks out with half a dozen anomalies we ourselves found puzzling. Earth might indeed have faced multiple covert arrivals. Hard to believe the Council never fully recognized that. Mara studied the images of advanced propulsion schematics displayed on one monitor. They've pieced together more about starfaring technologies than we realized, but it's patchwork knowledge, not a cohesive breakthrough. That's likely why they rely on cunning, stealth in the information sense, not battlefield stealth. RYX took in the large, open room. It appears the deadliest humans aren't necessarily the ones brandishing weapons on the stage. They're these quiet operators who gather data, interpret it, and conceal their findings until the right moment. The Council warned us about illusions of authority. We might have wasted our time focusing on Vargas and Townsend if not for Reed's intervention. When Reed returned roughly an hour later, she seemed composed yet urgent. I've spoken with 3 of my colleagues. They're verifying some of the data from your holocube. We've arranged a small meeting soon, off-site from this complex. If we can talk openly with you and gather enough consensus to present a united front, it might prevent Vargas from pushing Earth toward an arms race. Townsend might be swayed if we show evidence that a peaceful approach is possible. Commander RYX eyed her carefully. We don't have time to gather every faction. The Council's arrival is imminent. I know, Reed said, but there's still a window to shift the momentum. Will you join us for this meeting? We can arrange discreet transportation. Vare glanced at RYX. Commander, we risk further exposure, but staying here accomplishes little now. If Reed can produce real human allies, that might be enough for the Council to approach with caution rather than force. Zinn agreed. I second that, Commander. Let's see this through. RYX closed his eyes in thought, then nodded. All right, DR. Reed, we'll go with you. But the slightest sign of a double cross, we'll vanish. Understood. Understood, Reed replied. She retrieved a set of ID badges from a drawer, handing them out. Wear these around your necks and activate your partial disguises. My best guess is that, with the right ID, most security personnel won't question your presence. We'll slip out of the building through an auxiliary exit. The motor vehicle we'll use is authorized for staff transport. The 4 aliens exchange a glance. Stepping out into the human world with only the barest illusions was precisely what they had planned to avoid. But time was pressing. Each adjusted the small wrist device that overlay a human-like projection. It didn't physically reshape them, but to the casual observer, they would appear as 4 somewhat tall, slender humans. Zinn commented that the illusions felt stiff, but it was better than nothing. They followed Reed through a maze of tunnels, up a service elevator, and out into a back parking area where a nondescript van waited. 2 uniformed security guards were present, but they barely glanced their way, swayed by Reed's confident posture and the ID badges. Everyone piled in, Reed in the driver's seat, the aliens in the back. She pulled out onto the road, the city lights glittering around them. The cacophony of honking horns and neon billboards reminded them how chaotic Earth was. As she navigated through side streets, avoiding main thoroughfares, Reed updated them. The rendezvous is at a private building owned by a research foundation. It's used for hush-hush government projects sometimes. We'll have partial privacy there. Mara peered at the city's skyline through tinted windows, marveling at the dense architecture. You humans build upward, layering your environment with these tall structures, all while your planet is still partially unexplored in places. Reed nodded. We expand in haphazard ways, a reflection of our conflicting priorities. But sometimes that chaos yields innovation or trouble. The vehicle eventually slipped through an electronic gate into an underground garage. They exited, illusions intact, and followed Reed to a secure elevator. Once inside, she pressed a code that made the elevator descend. The doors opened on a subterranean level with blank concrete walls, leading to a large set of metal doors. Reed tapped another code, and the doors slid open. In a spacious chamber reminiscent of a conference room, 3 individuals stood waiting. 2 were men in business attire. 1 was a woman with braided hair. Each had an air of quiet self-possession. One man stepped forward, eyes flicking over the disguised forms of the aliens. Evangeline, I assume these are your visitors? She nodded. Yes, they could drop the illusions if everyone's comfortable. I trust we're among allies here. The braided-haired woman said, We've taken precautions. No cameras, no signals. This area is under a carefully controlled electromagnetic environment. She offered a short bow. My name is DR. Shawnee Bose. I lead a small team that researches quantum-based detection systems. The older man with silver hair introduced himself as David King, a former intelligence officer who specialized in analyzing anomalies. The younger man, Adrian Lee, was an aerospace engineer who had studied suspected alien propulsion technology. All 3 gave an impression of rational competence. Commander RYX and his team exchanged a look, then deactivated the illusions, revealing their elongated alien forms. None of the humans flinched. David King even smiled slightly in wonder. Remarkable. Reed gestured. Everyone, this is Commander RYX, Analyst Zinn, Scout Vare, and Technician Mara. They come from a branch of what they call the Galactic Council, here to observe us. And time is of the essence. DR. Bose motioned to a circular table in the center. Shall we sit? We have a lot to discuss. They gathered around the table. For the next hour, the newly assembled group dove into urgent matters. How Earth's leadership would react, how the Council might approach official contact, the accelerated timetable of 48 hours, and a looming threat that Ambassador Vargas could escalate an orbital arms program. The three new humans verified they had cross-referenced data from the small holocube Mara provided. They were stunned, but also relieved to see confirmation that the Council had formal protocols to integrate new species peacefully under the right conditions. David King folded his hands. The question is how to ensure those conditions are met. If the Council sees us as too belligerent or chaotic, they'll clamp down. That would trigger exactly the scenario we fear. Our wives explained quietly, yes. The Council might impose trade restrictions or even sabotage Earth's technology to contain you. Earth, feeling threatened, might lash out. We need a demonstration of calm, cooperative intent from your planet's leadership to avert that path. Adrian Lee leaned forward. Townsend, the Secretary General, might be open to it, but she's losing ground to fearmongers like Vargas. We need a wedge to peel away his supporters. If we show Townsend and a handful of key generals evidence that a peaceful approach yields greater benefits, like advanced medical or environmental technology, maybe we can shift the balance. Analyst Zinn cautioned, the Council rarely shares advanced tech so early. They see it as a reward once a species demonstrates stability. Reed pressed her lips together. Then we need a plan that convinces them we're on a cooperative trajectory. Even small gestures might tip the scales. Meanwhile, we could try to placate Vargas by offering transparency or some limited defensive assurances, so he doesn't feel cornered. The brainstorming continued in earnest. It was an unprecedented scenario. Humans and aliens forging a clandestine alliance to shape the outcome of first contact. None of them had illusions about how precarious it was. One misstep could unravel everything. Vare studied each human's face, impressed by their intellect and composure. These are not the loud and flashy types. They were watchers, strategists, the ones who could sway events from behind the scenes. After they hammered out a loose plan, Dr. Bose typed up a coded message to be delivered to Townsend's staff. It would request an urgent, off-the-record meeting regarding the satellite. David King planned to quietly leak certain data about the economic advantages of open trade with advanced civilizations. Adrian Lee would contact a sympathetic general, urging caution rather than immediate militarization. Meanwhile, Reed asked RYX's team if they could contact their superiors to relay that a pacifist faction was ready to meet in good faith. Zinn, monitoring a portable comm device, said, our main ship in orbit is only partially manned. The Council delegation is still inbound. We can send a Type B message that we've established contact with a group of humans who want peaceful negotiations. Hopefully, the Council will hold off any drastic measures. Our wives gave a slow nod. Do it. This was never how we expected to proceed, but it might avert a crisis. Reed took a moment to glance around the table at her friends, at the aliens. Her mind flashed with the enormity of what they were trying to accomplish, bridging the gap between an entire planet and a vast interstellar civilization, all within days. We have to be prepared for the possibility that Vargas or someone else tries to sabotage this approach, she said. He might label it treason or infiltration. Then we proceed discreetly, David King replied. We only need a short window to open Townsend's eyes. The meeting lasted into the late hours, until they parted with cautious optimism. The aliens remained hidden in the subterranean conference room, while Reed and the others emerged to carry out their tasks. Time ticked by in slow, tense increments. Zinn juggled scanning for the Council's approach. Mara fidgeted with the encryption devices. Bear paced. Arwaix tried to calm his racing thoughts, reflecting on how quickly the once simple mission had spiraled into something massive and unpredictable. Eventually, Reed returned, looking fatigued but determined. Townsend agreed to a private discussion in a secure location tomorrow morning. Some generals will join, presumably those not fully aligned with Vargas. This is our chance to shift the dialogue. Adrian Lee confirmed via text message that the chosen site was an undisclosed conference wing, not far from a main diplomatic complex, but away from the press and the public. They're going to keep the gathering small. Officially, it's a technical briefing on the satellite. Unofficially, we aim to introduce your presence. Our YX's eyes widened. We can't appear openly all at once. Reed nodded. I'll handle the approach carefully. Even Townsend might be startled by actual aliens in the room. Vare exhaled. This is dangerously close to full exposure. If it backfires, Earth's militaries could mobilize against us. Reed's voice was quiet but firm. I can't guarantee it won't. But if we do nothing, Vargas will push for weapons in orbit. Then your council might respond in kind. A chain reaction. This is our best shot at forging a stable path. It depends on whether Townsend has the courage and the influence to override the Warhawks. The next morning arrived with a sense of dread. Reed, David King, Dr. Bose, and Adrian Lee left early to secure the meeting site. Commander RYX and his team slipped in through a side entrance, illusions engaged. They waited in an antechamber that had been cleared by trusted aides. Reed orchestrated the details. Townsend believed she was meeting a specialized panel of scientific experts with urgent information. At exactly 9 in the morning, Townsend arrived, flanked by 2 generals and a few aides. She wore a dark blazer and carried a look of guarded concern. Reed greeted her, exchanged quiet words, and introduced David King as a retired intelligence analyst. Townsend's eyes flickered to the 4 tall humans who stood to one side. David offered a polite handshake and said, Madam Secretary General, we've discovered new facts regarding that satellite, which we cannot show in a public forum. Please take a seat. They ushered Townsend and her group around a table. One of the generals frowned skeptically, glancing at the disguised aliens, probably wondering who they were. Reed carefully explained that the unusual orbit and composition of a satellite pointed to something beyond Earth's current technology. Townsend grew anxious. I've heard these rumors, but most of my advisors say it's just an advanced prototype from a rival power. That's not the case, Dr. Bose said firmly, and we have evidence to prove it. But first, we need your assurance that you'll hear us out without immediate condemnation. The general beside Townsend snorted. What is this about exactly? Reed exchanged looks with RYX, who nodded almost imperceptibly. She turned to Townsend. Madam Secretary General, the truth is that we have visitors from beyond Earth. Not an invading army, not a rogue threat, but observers from a larger interstellar community. They're here, in this room. As Townsend's eyes widened, Reed gestured to Commander RYX. The illusions shimmered, then dissolved. In the hushed conference space, 4 alien figures stood exposed, tall and unmistakably inhuman. One of the aides gasped. The general cursed under his breath. Townsend's face went pale. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Commander RYX stepped forward, hands raised in a gesture of peace. Madam Secretary General, we apologize for the shock. My name is Commander RYX, representative of the Galactic Council's Observational Corps. We came to Earth to assess your species' readiness for contact. Circumstances forced us to reveal ourselves sooner than planned. Townsend sank slowly into her chair, hands shaking. She looked from RYX to Reed, then back to the aliens. I can't believe this. Aliens real, and you've been among us. Reed moved closer, speaking gently. This is the reality, Madam Secretary General. We're on the cusp of an event that will change humanity forever. But if we mishandle it, we could face catastrophic conflict. That's why we had to show you directly, so you'd grasp the truth beyond any doubt. The general leapt to his feet. We need security here. This is a breach. Townsend held up a trembling hand. General, hold off. We can't just call in armed troops on a species we know nothing about. Didn't you see them? They're not attacking us. The man hesitated, confusion evident. Townsend's eyes flicked to the other general, who likewise seemed overwhelmed. Please, Townsend said to RYX. Explain yourselves. Why have you come, specifically? RYX carefully outlined the Council's standard protocol. A stealth approach, evaluation of social and technological levels, and a final recommendation for official contact. We believe that your governments might be alarmed by any direct confrontation. Our job was to gauge how you might react and whether cooperation or containment is warranted. Containment? One of the generals echoed uneasily. Yes, Arwaix said gravely. If the council deems you too volatile or aggressive, they might try to limit your expansion into space. We have documentation of species who were temporarily quarantined or restricted to prevent interstellar conflict. But we also have a tradition of peaceful integration when a species proves ready to join the larger community. Townsend stared at Reed. How long have you known about this? Reed took a breath. We suspected for years. Our team has gathered fragments of evidence about extraterrestrial visits. When these observers arrived, I recognized the signals. That's how I made contact. The room buzzed with tension. The generals exchanged a look that seemed to say, "This is bigger than we imagined." Townsend, who had always championed global cooperation, now confronted living proof of life beyond Earth. If this is real, then everything changes. We have to proceed carefully, but how do we handle the alarmists like Vargas? David King stepped in. If you take the stance that this contact is manageable through careful diplomacy, you can cut off Vargas's calls for immediate militarization. We have to do it quickly, though. The Council's main delegation arrives within 2 days. One of the generals found his voice again. And if we decide we don't trust these aliens, what stops us from gathering our forces? Mara answered, calm but frank. Such an action would all but guarantee a hostile response from the Council. We do not come as conquerors, but we are not defenseless. A war would be devastating for both sides. Your species is clever, but you can't stand against the combined might of the Council. Nor do we wish that to happen. Townsend closed her eyes, collecting herself. When she spoke again, her voice was firmer. We must inform certain high-level officials, but we'll keep it as contained as possible to prevent panic. We have to draft a unified approach, show the Council that we prefer dialogue over aggression. Gentlemen, do you agree? She looked at the generals, who hesitated, then gave short nods. Even if they were reluctant, they saw no immediate alternative. At that moment, a beep sounded on Zin's device. The alien tapped it and whispered to RYX, "The delegation is accelerating. They will be here in 24 hours, not 48. The infiltration ship we left in orbit just signaled. RYX faced the humans. Time is almost gone. Within a day, the Council will be at your doorstep." Townsend inhaled sharply. Then we have no choice. We'll mobilize the top-tier leadership for an emergency closed session. Dr. Reed, you and your colleagues need to help me present this in a way that doesn't spark chaos. We'll hold the session in the secure conference center. Commander RYX, you and your team must be there, but discreetly. Reed bit her lip, already mentally planning how to manage the meltdown that could occur once more people learn the truth. We'll do our best, but be prepared for strong reactions. The meeting ended in a flurry of hurried coordination. Townsend and the generals rushed out to gather the necessary heads of state or representatives, none of whom had any clue that actual extraterrestrials were among them. Reed and her group stayed with RYX's team, hashing out final details. After a tense day of frantic calls, sealed directives, and cryptic invitations, the plan was set. A small circle of world leaders, top scientific advisors, and security chiefs would meet that evening in the most secure part of the diplomatic complex. Some had to be sworn to secrecy on penalty of treason. The atmosphere crackled with anxiety. That night, in a high-tech underground hall, the gathering took place. Townsend opened the meeting with an announcement. They had discovered undeniable proof of extraterrestrial intelligence, physically present on Earth. As soon as the words left her lips, the room erupted in shock, shouts, and confusion. In the midst of it, Reed guided Commander RYX and his team forward. The illusions dropped. Half the assembly gasped in open disbelief. A few guards nearly reached for weapons, but Townsend barked in order to stand down. RYX spoke in measured tones, explaining the Council's approach, its arrival time, and how Earth could either choose a path of cooperation or risk an ill-fated confrontation. Zin, Mara, and Ver stood ready to answer questions about technology, intentions, and the potential benefits of membership in a vast interstellar community. The questions came fast and furious. Could the Council be lying? Would Earth remain sovereign? What about cultural differences, religious implications, resource exploitation? Throughout it all, Reed and her allies underscored that Earth's best weapon right now was composed thinking and open dialogue. Otherwise, they risked forcing the Council's hand. The debate wore on into the small hours of the morning. Some leaders grew resigned, others tried to grasp opportunities. A handful still seethed with mistrust. But as time passed, the chaotic mix of shock and curiosity settled into a fragile acceptance that they needed a plan before dawn. When the night ended, Townsend emerged with a formal statement to be delivered to the Council upon arrival. Earth was willing to engage in structured talks, provided certain guarantees. They sought no war, only understanding of the Council's expectations and potential alliances. In return, the Council was to respect Earth's sovereignty, granting them time to adjust to this cosmic revelation. It was not perfect, but it was a start. Dawn broke, and news quietly spread among key global powers that a historic event was imminent, though details were withheld from the masses to prevent widespread panic. Military deployments around the planet were placed on elevated alert, but with orders not to fire unless openly attacked. Townsend and a select few took positions at an undisclosed site outside the city, preparing for contact. Commander RYX relayed the developments to his approaching superiors, hoping they would see that enough humans stood ready for a peaceful encounter. Then, at midday, the sky above the rendezvous site flickered. An array of silent craft appeared, vessels using advanced cloaking technology. In the lead was the Council's official diplomatic cruiser. Earth's gathered representatives stood in solemn wait, hearts pounding, flanked by Townsend, Reed, Commander RYX, and the rest of the observer team. As the cruiser touched down, vents hissed and a ramp lowered. A figure in ornate robes stepped forward, flanked by alien aides. The Council had arrived, and so, for the first time in Earth's long and tumultuous history, humans prepared to meet an interstellar community not through the loudest voice or biggest weapon, but guided by quiet watchers who noticed everything, who planned meticulously, and who understood that sometimes the greatest power lies in knowledge rather than noise. As Dr. Reed stood slightly behind Townsend, observing the newly arrived Council delegates. Commander RYX noted how none of the other humans seemed to realize that she, in her subdued stance, had been instrumental in orchestrating this entire scenario. It was precisely why she was the deadliest human in the room, the one no one noticed until it was too late. Because in a world teeming with generals, politicians, and self-proclaimed saviors, it would always be the quiet observer, the careful analyst, and the unassuming scientist who shaped the future from behind the scenes. And if humanity was to find its place among the stars, perhaps it would be thanks to those who watched, learned, and acted not with bluster, but with a calm and purposeful mind.